Good afternoon. How are you? Now, did you set your clocks right? You know, it's spring forward, fall back. So uh, you lost an hour. Uh, why do we do this anyway? There aren't enough farmers and they all have electric lights. But anyhow, that's the process. So what does Thomas Jefferson have to say about the weather? It's about 68, so that's nice. And there's no breeze. And I'm going late enough. It's still a slight chill. I'm not only wearing a shirt. And so it's a pleasant day. The talking heads yammer away at almost exclusively what's happening in the Middle East. And plainly there's no answer. And what answer is given on the hour, every hour, for the whole hour on all the networks. If you want to know what the other news is, you have to read something in print. And there's something wrong with our coverage when that's the case. So let me try to talk about some of the other things, if I can do it, that are going on. For instance, I'm no fan of Chris Christie, but he's down at the Freedom Summit, or he was yesterday, I believe. And he is the loyal representative of the Trump opposition, pointing out all the defects for Trump, including the partisan ones, why he'd make a terrible candidate for the Republican Party. And they booed him. And he said, your anger against truth is reprehensible. And, well, I agree with that. And it's why Biden should become president. That said, Christie, of course, went on to say several times during those interruptions of his remarks that you fear the truth, basically. So that's the problem. Truman, President Truman, in a campaign in, if I get my years right, 1948, there was somebody in the crowd that said to Truman, "Give him hell, Harry." And then Harry responded by saying, "I'm just going to tell the truth, and they're going to think it's hell." Well, that doesn't seem to be working yet in a visible way in this year's elections. So that's something to keep in mind. And Trump manages to fake himself into the news cycle, and he gets away with it. So, for instance, he said that he could end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. And so Zelensky was asked about that, and he said he was welcome to try. But ending the war in 24 hours, I think he said specifically he could do it in 24 minutes if he's prepared to give up territory to Putin, and he's not. So that's the quick way that Trump might do it to his handler, Putin. These despotisms must stick together. They just can't ignore their opportunities to do terrible things. Now, we can't make light of the fact that it appears that the Republican campaign, the constant, unceasing, unremitting, relentless campaign against Biden, his age, and his policies, and misstating his policies to make the argument, are having some effect, because in a poll in the battleground states has Biden falling behind Trump. And, we're talking Nevada, Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. So those are the states to watch. Yes, I know we should all watch all the states and so forth, but these are the battleground states. The others are all carved up and are very unlikely to change. Now, when they do change, it's when the whole system falls apart. I ran in 1984 and ran as a Democrat. I ran for Congress in Northern Virginia in the 10th Congressional District. And by election day, the Democratic candidate, Mondale, he only won in D.C. and Minnesota. That's it, 2 states. So you know that the numbers were better before that. And in the reverse plane, Dole lost to Clinton, not as dramatically, but lost pretty soundly. And he, in his last campaign, he campaigned everywhere relentlessly, without stop, that is, Dole did. But what Clinton had done was Clinton ran through all the states that were questionable before the convention and ran through them again after the convention. And I think the race was sealed up right then and there. And then we've had situations like with Kerry. Kerry, after he had the nomination, he had spent the funds basically that he could. And that's when the Republicans ran their ads against him, making light of him being a hero, and that had he never really recovered from that. That was troubling. So the Dems had better get out there and fight and find those other voters in those battleground states, or we're going to have trouble in the presidential elections next year. That's pretty crazy stuff, but that's the way it goes. That is a pretty terrible situation. And right here in Virginia, we have a governor who thinks he should be considered as an alternative to Trump, and he's been campaigning that way. That is to say, he's campaigning in Virginia for those races to show how popular he is. We'll see that. And based on how popular he appears and how well he does in Virginia, he'll claim that gives him dibs on consideration for running as the Republican standard bearer. And there's always a mixed blessing choosing an untested candidate on a scale like that, and both for the Republicans and for the Democrats, because if you strike pay dirt, there's hell to pay to catch up to it. So Glenn Youngkin presents himself as the alternative candidate behind door number 2 in a run for president. Now, Biden surprised me. I don't mean this in a bad way. I'll explain. Biden is endorsing the candidates in Virginia running in the General Assembly, both for delegate and for state senator. And that's going to be helpful with some people, but it's hard to say will it make a difference. You know, you never know if there are coattails when you're running with a candidate that's popular, and you don't know if an endorsement when that person is not running in your campaign is going to help or not. And so that's the question. You could go into each of the races, but for my money, the most interesting one is one between Perry, the Democrat, and Segura, the Republican. Perry's lived in the area for years. Segura is just he's helicoptered into the district and is running, and he is plainly the most rightist candidate, I think, statewide. And to give you some idea how messy the fight is, there's been $6.4 million spent by both sides on pounds and pounds of paper, minutes, hours of time, terabits of information on the internet, door knocking, fundraising, everything. Now, I know Perry because she was a prosecutor before she became a candidate. I had cases with her. I'm representing the defense. And before that, she was in the CIA, which is a profile for a Democrat that can exist in Virginia and maybe exist no place else. I don't know what the public thinks of that anymore. That is, that you were in the CIA given all the popular movies, but there it is. So next Tuesday, a couple of things will happen. We'll find out if the General Assembly stays as it is with a slight margin in the state Senate for the Democrats and the lower house favoring the Republicans, with a Republican in the governor's mansion, and that is Youngkin, of course. So, or will it change again? I think the polling question is, how do you react to the manner of campaigning by the Republicans? Now, several years ago, we the Dems, took both the lower and the upper house in the General Assembly, and that was terrific. But the reason I thought we did it is because we brought along a lot of moderates who found the lying and exaggeration untenable for a person to support. And so as the returns rolled in, those of us who were at different watch parties, we saw how the vote was coming in, and it was coming in strongly for the Democrats. And I think that was the Democrats reacting, recoiling from that kind of campaigning by the Republicans. The question this year is, has lying, exaggeration, personal bashing, doxing, has it become normalized? Is it now acceptable? That's what happens in this fist fight. You know, get over it. That's the way it is. And how could they say it if it wasn't true? And all of us, I think, certainly us Dems, are hard to remain silent when we see the lies being told. And if you don't have some lifeline into who are the dependables, if you will, in the sense of who are suited to the job, are balanced, have views for the people and the state, if you don't know who those people really are and what their backgrounds are, you're hard put to know as not an outsider, just an ordinary voter who doesn't have time to know all of these things. So we'll find out next Tuesday, probably by midnight, how well the people reacted to the dirty tricks of the Republicans, and that's the only way I could put it. In the notion of water under the bridge, and this is not an advertisement for me running to be Soil and Water Conservation District Director again. This is a thing that I've been concerned about a long time. Now, those of you who are rural or suburban even are familiar with the notion of septic and wells. That is, you get the water out of the ground, you get it from aquifers, you get it from the various reservations underneath our feet. And the water that's not used flows into major rivers. And in this case, that's the Potomac near where I am. And the Potomac serves itself to give water back to the people. 75% of the drinking water comes from the Potomac River. And if you think of the Potomac River as going from west to east, what you see is a river that is subject to pollutants along the way from those who just drop the pollutants in the water. So in some places, it's not safe to get a kayak. It's not safe to swim. Other places it is. It's questionable whether you should drink the water. Fishing is a question. And now we have a situation in which the water is low. And I had one farmer come up to me and say the reason that he supported my, candidacy, and I know him and I know of him, and he said it's because those who are developing are putting so many straws in the ground, that is, drilling so many wells, that what's happening is they're preventing the water in the watersheds from accumulating and going into the creeks and rivers and going into the Potomac. And so to give some idea of what this is that the water level hasn't been this low since 2010. And so the experts on the commission that overlooks the concerns about the Potomac River are looking for alternative ways to bring water in. They're also hoping that toward the end of the year, we'll combat the aspect of this that is the drought that has suppressed the water. And the way the farmer put it was, what kind of good government is it if I can walk across the Potomac from the Virginia side to the Maryland side? And I agree. And I took a picture of the river today as I was passing over from Brunswick, Maryland to Lovettsville, Virginia. And if I have a second picture, which I probably do at the same view, it'll give you an idea of how there are now stepping stones. This is far different than what my dad told me when he was a kid in New York, that there was a freeze so bad one time that the Hudson River was frozen. So you didn't have to take the Washington Bridge, although it'd be a long trek. You could walk on the water, which had become ice. That's the wonder of water. It has several states to exist: gas, liquid, solid, and it chose to be solid. What we have now is a quantity shortfall, and that's not a joking matter. And they say it's not an emergency now, but you know, they sort of don't keep track. They don't have an inventory of the water and where it is and of the quality of the water. And that's a dangerous place to be. So there have always been, in my opinion, those developers that figure we'll develop it until the septic and well system fails. Then we'll just put another straw in the Potomac River and draw that out. And that water that you used to get for free, quote free, from your well, well, now you'll pay for it because we're going to manage to get it to your house. So there are some bad motivations possible here to confound the access to decent water. When I first came to the county, there was a good senator, state senator from the area, Charlie Waddell. We call him the singing senator because he would sing the Wabash Cannonball and change the words to fit you as a candidate, and he did that for my race. But we went all over the district and we talked about it, and he said west of a certain place, which happens to be Route 15, which divides the whole county of Loudoun County. West of it, it was all well and septic. And he said that would be safe from development for many years because there was no easy way around that problem. Well, some people don't care about solutions. Charlie was a great guy, and he called that right. And for many years, what he had to say was true. And then some people said, we just don't give a damn. We're going to do whatever the hell we want. And they are. So, I'm glad to be with you. And here I am in my cathedral of trees. And I wonder if it'll be this warm tomorrow. All the best. Bye-bye.